So are we actually going to do this? Yeah, we are. Let's go. Welcome back to another episode. I am very, very excited to introduce you to today's guest. Alison and I have known each other for a while, and I have known about her for quite a long time. She didn't know I was one of her lurkers for many years. And her logo is really how I remembered her. So if you have not ever met Alison Reeves and seen her logo, you'll know it's unique. I love it. Don't ever change it because it's how I remembered you when you came back into my world after the first introduction. So I'm very excited for Alison to come on. She is been a friend to me in business, but also an inspiration and accountability and a challenger in my life and in my world. And I can't wait for you to experience her wealth of knowledge and how she approaches the topics of money and business. So, Alison, welcome. I'm going to let you introduce yourself and give your own introduction because you'll do better than me.
Well, first of all, I am honored at your introduction because I didn't know that you were a lurker, and I'm just really honored about what you said about my logo, and I'm feeling all the feelings. So thank you for kicking us off that way. Um, yeah, I've been my like common introduction, like I've been blogging since 2011, although I just realized last month it was since 2010. So I've been lying for all these years, been blogging since 2010. And then I've been coaching and consulting since 2017. And then I got into mindset work in 2019 and somatic work in 2022. So I've kind of evolved in from the grounded to the woo-woo as far as just what I've had to the tools I've had to use to get more results in my own life and then teaching other clients. And then as of last year, I'm also an author as well.
I love it. I am so excited for this conversation because your story and when you shared it with me, and I've heard it a couple times now, I've had the privilege of hearing you speak, and I love that you're open about this journey in the entrepreneur world and you talk about the money that you made and the money you lost and the nervous system havoc you had happened to you through all of the up and down. And I think a lot of us have experienced a lot of these wounds and traumatic roller coasters from making money in business. So that's what this conversation is going to be about. And stay tuned because we have something really special Alice and I are partnering up together to do so that you can hear more about that. But why don't you tell us a little bit of your journey in making money from your business?
Yeah. Well, my business really started picking up in 2019 is when my coaching really took off. And I was super lucky that year that I was working for a company that let me go part-time. So it was just a great opportunity for me to keep growing my business and kind of taper off there. And that was the year I joined a mastermind at the end of the year. It was a $9,800 program, which is pretty up there. And I had great results from that program, and they taught mindset work differently than I'd ever heard it. So the biggest lesson from that mastermind was before 50K months, your self-belief is one of the biggest makers or breakers of your success. And I
Mm,
found that to be true. The other thing is that that investment was like poop my pants scary investment. I like felt nauseated when I made that investment, and then I got really good results from it. And so that was a good thing, but there was a couple of bad things that I didn't know were bad at the time until later. One of those was I was pressured into doing that sale, which ended up working out well for me. So I was like, oh, that's just what it feels like to make a scary aligned decision. It feels like I'm going to throw up. And then maybe that's a yes in my body, or that's kind of what I was sold in the coaching industry was like, that is what, it's always scary to make money or to make an investment. You have to invest more to be able to make more.
hmm
And so I ended up joining another mastermind after that and another mastermind after that. And what happened, because I ended up investing in a lot of the same types of really pushy sales, I started to decrease trust in myself. So I started learning that other people had the answers and I didn't.
hmm
And I didn't know what was happening at the time. I just knew that if I wanted to solve a problem in my business, I would spend a lot of money to do it. And what happened was that this became like an addiction to stress. So I was compounding lack of self-trust with an addiction to stress. And something else that was happening at the time that I didn't realize was that I didn't know how to ask for support. So I really needed support. I really wanted someone to save me. And at the time, the only way that I knew to do that was to be in crisis. So over time, I was investing more and more and more. I wasn't necessarily making any more, even though I didn't make less initially, but I was taking home less and less. So then that was kind of compounding issues, dysregulating my nervous system. And in 2020, that was the first year that I really exploded, as a lot of us did who had online businesses that involved coaching and consulting. Um, I had this mentality because I did have some debt at the time and I was able to pay that off, but it always kind of stressed me out, the idea of like spending less or really like combing through my finances really in detail. And I just adopted this mentality that if I just make more money, it doesn't matter how much I spend. That worked until it didn't. And that's what I say about a lot of these strategies, like, investing outside of my comfort zone to push me, that worked until it didn't. I didn't know how to navigate what was a an edgy decision versus what was starting to dysregulate my nervous system. And we can talk more about what all these things mean, but I'm curious where you want to go from here because I just shared a whole lot.
I love it. I'm so fascinated by this. And one, just the point that you pointed out here is that it worked until it didn't. So investing was good, but continuing to invest without a checks and balance and without like a place coming from a place that is more regulated and being more reactive, that's when it started to not work for you. It's that kind of like what that looked like for you.
Yeah, for sure. And I think there was not a lot of time for integration between programs. So I was kind of
Okay.
like, I was finishing one mastermind that I wanted to jump into the next one, but I also didn't trust myself at all. And part of that was because I wasn't giving myself a chance to trust myself. I was ignoring my intuition. So I was that edgy feeling versus that like feeling of being challenged. I didn't know like where it was turning into nervous system dysregulation. So I just assumed that even if I was scared shitless, the other person had the answer and I didn't. The other thing in hindsight that I learned that I really value now is working with someone. Like, why am I working with someone? Because
Mm,
I'm working with them because I want to learn something that they know, but I'm also working with them for the environment, for the accountability, because they're growing in a way I want to grow. And I really value now more working with someone over a very long period of time, where my relationship with them can kind of change and grow. Like after I got out of this, what I call mastermind addiction cycle, I worked with the same one coach for 2.5 years.
love that.
And I think that that's one of the things that your programs offers, Lonnie, because you guys are so
Mhm.
flexible and you can grow with people, is like just the opportunity, not just to like hire Lonnie and trust Lonnie as my source of all marketing knowledge, but like hiring someone where like I could really be empowered and learn to trust myself more and more. It's like hiring a therapist. You
Mhm.
hire them to get the tools and you move on with your life.
Yeah, I love that. And it is so different to have somebody who is long-term supporting you and really knows your business and knows you and can bring those two pieces of information together to truly support you. Whereas I think sometimes if you flash in a pan and do short-term spurts with people, they don't really understand your goals and you, and so they're not able to truly customize the way that you maybe are needing. So there is an advantage to having that long-term relationship. I love that. And I could tell that. Different experience, right?
Yeah, very different experience. And very different experience like joining a mastermind where I'm like going somewhere to look for the answers versus joining a mastermind and being empowered to find the answers on my own. And in some ways, it's less comfortable. In some ways, it's easier to go to someone and just say, like, just tell me what to do
Mhm.
instead of having somebody really coach me and ask me. Like, I don't know the answers, but I can help you tune into your own guides and your own self and your own alignment, which is really uncomfortable in the beginning. It takes a lot of faith to trust yourself, but it's a lot more sustainable to be in alignment with your own decisions. But it is really scary to start learning self-trust and faith. It also takes a regulated nervous system, which I've referenced a couple times. But when I talk about being edgy, that's like I've heard people kind of say that in the coaching industry. I used to not really know what that meant, but it's like when we talk about a regulated nervous system, you have what's called a window of tolerance. So I'm
Mhm.
like putting my hands up in a circle. So like this is where I'm comfortable. And outside of the circle is where I'm uncomfortable. So when we get edgy, we're getting close to that, the edge of the circle, the window of tolerance. And that can be really good for building resilience. But if we get too edgy or if we do something too fast, too soon, we can go into a stress response. And if we stay in a stress response, our nervous systems can get dysregulated. So for me, that first mastermind I joined, that was really edgy. I wanted to throw up. I ended up ROIing, ended up being a really good challenge. Then I thought that was the only way. So I was dysregulated because I was spending too much money too fast, too soon. But I was also, in hindsight, another thing I'm recognizing is that even positive change can throw us into dysregulation
Mm,
because it can be too much too fast, too soon. We go into a stress response if something happens to us that we're not ready for. So you can have trauma from a car accident, but you can also have trauma from a stressful doctor appointment or
yeah.
a fender bender. And
Mhm.
I went from a 60K year to a 260K year, which is, it could have been a lot more. I'm not a millionaire, wasn't a millionaire, but that's still a
But
lot of growth.
that's a lot of growth. That's
Yeah.
like
And I
tripling that income
Yeah, and I,
plus.
I would never recognize so from all these expenses, this addiction to masterminds, lack of self-trust, making a lot of money, spending a lot of money, I had all of this trauma from my business. And like I said earlier, it all worked until it didn't. And then one
Yeah.
day, just like a few things just started falling apart to the point where I could not do things, I could not do uncomfortable things anymore.
Mm. So how did you realize that you were in this system, this dysregulated nervous system place? Like, how do you even acknowledge that? Because maybe somebody is listening, they're like, I feel like this could be me. How do I know?
Yeah. For me, I'll share my story and then I'll give more general advice.
Okay.
In my situation, I was really like reliant on that stress to kind of keep going at the rate that I was going. So the only thing that stopped me from continuing on the way that I was I had maxed out a third credit card and I just was basically unwilling to do any more. I was in a mastermind at that time that was the most expensive I'd been, and it was $7,000 a month
Wow.
and which was it got to the point where I was like paying myself less and less, paying other people more and more, and my business cash was not growing enough to support that. So that was me basically like I don't remember what my salary was at that point, but the following year there was a few months where I had a $0 salary and was just doing draws for a little bit. Um, but it got to the point that luckily that mastermind dissolved. So there was a lot of people that were unhappy. It was very unsupported. I mean, I've talked about that. I won't go into a long story about that. I'm happy to answer questions. But luckily that mastermind dissolved. So we were all basically released from the contracts early. And I would have never asked to leave that mastermind because I had also been told if I ever, cancel or change a commitment, then I'm just gonna attract that. Um, that if I ever say no on a sales call, that I would
Mhm.
attract no on my own sales calls. That was another thing that I was taught.
Ooh.
Yeah, if I have like, so then I was like, well, gosh, I don't want to say no because I don't want anyone to say no to me. So that it just was this moment at which I couldn't do anything different. I really think if I felt like I had other options, I probably would have like done them. But I just was like, I could not take another credit card. I could not do another thing. And I had enough money coming in that I was like safe from recurring payments, and I was kind of pivoting my business more into what felt more manageable for my nervous system at that time. But then I hired the coach that I had for 2.5 years, Jenny Kahn, and she was a spiritual coach who has she led me a lot in my business, but I started working with her and I got the somatic coaching certification I have because I knew I needed something different. And for that whole first year and a half when I was working on feminine energetics, on somatic work, on believing in alignment, leading into my own intuition, that whole at least a year, I felt like it was all bullshit. And I literally would say that when I was in the somatic coaching certification, I'm like, this kind of feels like bullshit. I don't feel yes and no in my body. Like I
Mm,
don't know what people like I don't feel those things, but I know that this is I just knew intuitively this was the way forward. I could not do what I was doing before. I just knew that the answer was there. And I get chills when I talk about it because I don't know how I knew that was a thing, but I just heard about it and I signed up for it. And then it has, of course, changed my life. But it was in the summer of June 2022. I had like I think there was either June or July of that year when I did have some cash coming in, but I had no new sales. So it's kind
okay.
of like the lowest of low. Like I couldn't even afford to join another mastermind. I was in, more debt than I'd ever been in. I had $0 of new sales, and I started finding money on the ground. And
Mm.
I started feeling grateful for the money I found on the ground. And it
And we're
couldn't be
talking like pennies, right?
pennies. I found a penny, I found a nickel, I found a dime, but I started feeling gratitude. I was like, okay, God has me, the universe has me, it's going to be okay. And I also started feeling grateful for everything I'd been through because I was like, holy shit. I know that I just went through some things and it's not looking great right now, but like I did that.
Yeah.
Like I started recognizing like the success that I'd had. And I started feeling grateful for the pennies in the ground. And then one day I find a mountain of change on the ground. Like, how did that get there? Why did nobody pick it up? It's mismatched. It's not from like a coin holder or anything. And then that following month in August of 2022, I got an $8,000 check in the mail.
Just random.
Just random. And I mean, it was from something, but there was no way I would have known it was going to come, who it was going to come from, that I would have known that they had anything to give me. I manifested a $5,000 retreat that somebody gifted for free. Somebody paid in cash, couldn't go, wanted to donate it. And I got a
Wow.
call. And then I got another $2,000. All of that had nothing to do with my work. And so I
Mm.
was grateful. I was lucky that I got to see that my faith was leading to something. But there was this bubble where like I had nothing. I didn't know where anything was going to come from. I didn't know if I was going to be able to do what I'd ever done again. And I was grateful for the penny on the ground.
Yeah. And also, I appreciate that you even mentioned, like, I felt like this was all bullshit. I
Yeah.
don't get it. I don't feel it. It takes, like, if you've ever experienced that with mindset stuff, when people are like, say your affirmations and like all these things, I'm like, I don't feel it. And that is hard because like we don't hear that side on social media from the experts who are all mindset people. Sometimes they leave out the point where you can go weeks and months even of like, this is stupid. I feel like this is just complete waste of time. But what we need to stay committed because it can work. And it's just that one moment it starts to like come together.
Yeah. That has to do with there's this principle in manifesting called the mirror principle. And a lot of times, if you feel like my manifestations are never coming true, this thing happens where, like, okay, I'm going to think about what I want to manifest and think about what it feels like to have it. And then I feel awesome. But then 5 minutes later, it's not there yet. And then I feel like shit again. I'm like, it's never going to happen. That's why it's so hard to manifest for many of us, because you have to hold the feeling of having it long enough for it to manifest.
Mm.
And
Oh,
so,
that's so good.
yeah, so you have to look for one, instead of doing gratitude lists now, I write lists of evidence that it's happening. That means celebrating the pennies in the ground. I mean, there was a point where I used to do on any sale that I got that was under like $1,000. I just was like, oh, it's not going to make a difference. And then when I started feeling, now I do a decent amount of sales, low ticket offers, but I value, I mean, I think I'm going to become rich from pennies. Like I truly have this idea that like I'm going to become rich from finding pennies in the ground. I found like over $1 on the ground this weekend in pennies and nickels, and a lot of
That's
them are eroded beyond recognition, and they just keep coming to me. And I'm like, I feel like I'm going to become rich from pennies on the ground somehow.
yeah, better pay attention. Some of those coins are worth
I
quite a
know
bit more
I need to take
money.
a class or something.
There's like an app. I just saw this. This is like so random, but TikTok showed me an app where you can scan pennies because my kids were talking about how like they think a coin is worth more because it's all crusty and stuff. I'm like, no, it's not that. And so they were talking in Facebook, or TikTok obviously was listening, and there's an app. So Just a side note.
I
But
definitely want that app.
I'll share it with you when it comes across because now I talked about it again. So it'll definitely show it to me. But I think this is so important to talk about. And I think this is one of those things that is hard to wrap your mind around when you're not used to it. When you're starting a business, like we're like, just tell me what to do. I want to do the things to make the money. I just need to get the cash. And nobody wants to really think about mindset. And there, I do believe there's a balance between like working on your mindset, processing things, using manifestation skills and practices for, and also taking action. Like it, yes, there is opportunity to just, have things come to you randomly. That's awesome. But that doesn't mean you're not working anymore.
For sure. Yeah, because you can do both. That's like the masculine versus the feminine, the action versus the intuition. And
Hmm.
you need both. Like, I mean, some people can just manifest, but they are like really good manifestors. Most of us need the action to help get behind the belief, and the practical action also. It's like you don't get the, you gain clarity through the action, not through thinking about it, which is what a lot of people can get trapped into.
Yes. Or just writing 6 pages of I am successful and rich.
Yeah. Or 6 pages of planning without actually doing anything about it.
Right, exactly. Either or, not going to get you very far. So how do you learn to trust yourself? How do you learn to expand your capacity for more wealth? Obviously, you were making a lot of money when you were in those masterminds. You just weren't keeping it. You weren't containing that wealth. You were selling, but you weren't like it was just leaving as soon as it came to you. So your capacity for holding more wasn't really actually there. It was just passing through more.
Yeah. Yeah. So, like a really good framework you can start with is a lot of us know about mindset and affirmations, but stop there. So, a first tip that I share with people is, write a list of affirmations, or I have the mindset card deck that I hand out, but you can even ask ChatGPT for some mindset affirmations and then focus on a few at a time. But when you read one, pause with it. Don't just say it and think that you believe it, but sit with like, how does that feel when I say it? If it feels light and expansive, airy, exciting, then read it some more. Read it over and over again. Really sit with it. But for a lot of affirmations you read it and it sounds like bullshit, or you read
Hmm.
it and you feel stress in your body. So then that's time to take the next step into embodying the wealth, which is like noticing, okay, that's interesting. Like this, if it feels like it's baloney, like it's not real, what part of this feels untrue? Can I rewrite it? Can I write a bridge statement, which is like a compromise? So instead of saying, like I'm going to do 100K months by next year, I can say like, well, that feels totally unachievable. Like my body knows it's a lie to me. Maybe I'll end
Hmm.
up doing it. But I have to write something that feels believable. Like I'm going to make more money this year than I made last year. I'm going to make more money. Like my income is going to trend upwards over and over and over again. So come up with a statement that feels true. So that's like one step is like, and then if you feel constriction or stress in your body, then sit with that. So why that's interesting. Why does this stress me out? Maybe it's because this goal is out of alignment. Maybe it's because I'm not coming up with another reason, but like Lonnie and I are both general manifestors. So if you know your human design, you can be a general manifestor or a specific manifestor. So I
Hmm.
used to sit down with two of my business coaches and we'd come up with like, this is how many launches you're going to do a year, and each one is going to sell this many. And that just had me overwhelmed immediately. And
Yep.
like, I wish I was like, I think Lonnie's a little bit more specific than I am, but I'm like, I can't write down on a paper where the money is coming from. And that is to, the disappointment of every business coach I've ever worked with. They're like, I just like, I know more is coming. I'm going to take these actions. Like I'm growing my email list. I do some networking, and then the clients come as they come, how they come. So then now I know when I'm like, I'm going to make 100K months and I feel constriction in my body, that's just out of alignment for me.
Yeah.
So that's the next step is like, and this is when you're paying attention to how you feel, you're starting to engage your nervous system. And then we can go into this more, but part of what Lonnie and I will be teaching together, which I'm guessing we'll talk about, is like, okay, now that you're starting to feel those things in your body, what do you actually do with that? Because there's a difference between having a mindset problem and having a dysregulated nervous system. How do
Mm.
you know which it is? Like, how do you know if it's an affirmation or if you have trauma that might need to be released? And
Yeah, this
we're
is
not going
so
to,
good.
yeah, you're not going to do any harm, of course, by exploring any of these. But um, yeah, so to answer your question, I would start with affirmations and then start feeling in your body, making bridge statements, then start feeling in your body and noticing where the constrictions are. And
This
then you
is
have to
so
figure out,
good.
yeah,
Yeah, and I love that you pointed out just now, like there's a difference between like I need an affirmation and I just need a better mindset, or I need to address what's being dysregulated in my nervous system because our manifestations, what we choose to say, can be triggering to this dysregulation. And
yeah,
that is something I didn't know is actually my husband like triggered a moment where I was like, he's like, you're a multi six-figure business. This is like way back in like 2016 when I was just starting to gain momentum. And I was like, that is just not possible. I'm just trying to make $4,000 a month. And I got stressed out. And he is cheering me on and saying it in a beautiful, positive way and loving me. And I'm freaking out internally, like, that is not possible. I'm gonna have to work so much. And then, like, just I felt in my body so much constriction and anxiety from the thought of, oh, that means a six-figure year for me or a multi six-figure year would mean like tripling the amount of time I was working. I was already working a lot of hours, maxing myself out, not holding to boundaries, not having a clear plan of growth that was scalable. So the when he would say this belief that we can build a multi six-figure business, I was like, I'm gonna die. That's how it felt. It felt like
yeah,
that amount would be require so much work. I would not be able to do it. So then I put up a block for growth
mm,
unintentionally, like subconsciously. I don't want to make more sales because more sales equals more work. And when I finally realized that, it was mind blowing. And that's where the custom cash formula that I'm doing the challenge for last, like at the time when you guys listen to this, it'll have been last week. You can still go back and watch the replay. But that's where I had to map out like, how can I make more cash? How can I disrupt that belief that more time is required to make the money that I want? And now I could rework the way I price, the way I put offers out, the way I could predict my cash. And that really helped me to shift and like it was a practical action plus a mindset, body, nervous system reset.
yeah. That's such a great example of how practical action ties into it too. It's like once
Mhm.
you realize what the trigger was, and like that was like multiple six figures, it's like way too edgy, way like that's dysregulated. Why? Why? Because you didn't have enough leverage in your
Mhm.
time or in your marketing. And so then you went back to the offer and you created more leverage. And then now it's like more manageable. It's like it's always spiritual and practical. It's always the nervous system and the action. That's such a great
Yes.
example.
And but it has to start with the nervous system and the mindset first. Because we could be doing a ton of action, but subconsciously blocking ourselves from the results because of that dysregulation, or not even like what you were talking about, how you were like, I'm not paying myself. I'm making more, but I'm not keeping more. More is going out than ever before, and that was not sustainable either. And it's just like this constant loop cycle that we get stuck in. So this is such a powerful concept and new way of thinking for business growth, which is why I'm so excited to do this workshop with you.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the workshop real quick. So we're going to be hosting a workshop on April 7th, and we're going to be doing a collaborative workshop here because we just really truly believe in this shift in mindset and how it can be so game changer. It's made a difference in my business and in yours. And so we're doing this workshop called the Six Figure Aligned Wealth Roadmap. And it's going to be an advanced training for the woman who wants to expand her capacity for more wealth. So if you're just like, I just want to make $1,000 and I'm good with that, don't come to this training. But if you're wanting to unleash what is possible for me, whether it's six figures, whether multi six figures, maybe a six-figure month. You are just saying, I want to believe it and I want to have regulation when I'm thinking about it. We're going to walk you through that. So, can you give us a little sneak peek on what they maybe need to be feeling, or who would be the perfect fit for this, and then what we'll do in the workshop?
Yeah. I think if you're listening to us relating to a lot of this, you'll already know if this workshop is for you. Because if you have any success at all in business, you've hit some of these, and maybe you've already overcome some of them. But like a lot of people that I talk to are they already know, like when they hear nervous system dysregulation, they're like, oh, that's interesting. Or even what Lonnie was referencing about my story, like so I talk about wealth wounds a lot, which we can talk about in that workshop. It's like wealth wounds are how I help to quote unquote diagnose mindset
Mm,
issues. But one of mine was avoidance. So I wasn't like looking at my bank account in enough detail because it would make my nervous system dysregulated. But then another one is worthiness. And both of those things were not very helpful for making sure I was paying myself enough to pay my bills. That is really, really common. Um, if you want to be able to have it all, you have to be able to hold it all. And so if you find yourself, like if you're a successful business owner, but you're stuck in a cycle, then these are things you need that the workshop will really help with. It's like if you're in a cycle of like you'll get a whole bunch of clients and then you lose a whole bunch of clients. Like you could be blocking them. Or if you, another thing I see people do is like manifesting really big expenses to where they can't get ahead. Or like what Lonnie was alluding to earlier, where she couldn't grow because she was just working so much. Like I can never grow my income because I'm working so much that I can't find new clients. That's another common problem.
mhm,
Like it's a nervous system problem. It's also a leverage problem, which we're going to address in the workshop, is because it is always the action and the mindset of the nervous system. One of my most successful clients in the past was also the one who made the most money, but also she had the biggest, she never addressed. She went from like around $9,000 at most per month to $200,000 in a month. And her nervous system was dysregulated AF. She never, but she never could, she didn't ever, she's still that like it's bullshit mentality. Let me just get my head around the practical. But her income was just way up, way down. I mean, she was multiple seven figures, but couldn't ever hang on to it. And so I'm saying that because this affects you at all levels, whether you're full time and trying to scale or whether you're already a seven-figure entrepreneur, you need the leverage that Lonnie can offer you and with the consistent cash and the flexibility. And you need the nervous system regulation more than ever because if you want to have it all, you have to be able to hold it all.
mhm.
And the other thing that we do as entrepreneurs is we think, like, I'll take care of myself when. But
Yes.
a lot of times our self-care tends to decrease as our business grows rather than the opposite, which is what should be happening. As your business grows, your self-care needs to grow even more. And so I would come to this workshop where you get stuck before you get stuck in that cycle of no time for yourself and I can't hold anymore.
Absolutely. This is going to be so good. And you're exactly right. Whether you're just trying to scale to your first multi four-figure month, maybe like you're like, I'm just trying to hit 4,000. Maybe you're in that spot, or possibly you're hitting your 10K days. And that's your next goal. Either one, it's not just about making the money, it's about keeping it and maintaining that nervous system regulation so you enjoy it. Because I meet too many women who are like, I have a multi six and seven figure business and I'm burnt out. And this is how we stay out of burnout mode and keep yourself from that frustration of like, I just made all this money. Where did it go?
Yeah. And if it were easy, everybody would do it. If it
Yeah.
were, it's like it is, because I see people all the time, they have a lot of success without ever leaning into the feminine. It's like, but if it were easy, everybody would do it. And it takes a lot of trust and faith to truly like enjoy your life and business. I'm seeing someone now who, it's not someone in the online entrepreneur space, but they're very successful and they're very unhappy.
Mm,
Like, I don't want that.
yeah.
I'm here for enjoyment and purpose, and I want to be rich in every area of my life, not just my bank account.
I love that. And that's exactly what we believe in my programs. I'm like, we're not just here about profiting in money and income, but a profit in time, a profit in energy, a profit in fulfillment, because we need all those pieces. And also, I want to start profiting in those areas now, not when someday I am this whatever figure business earner that you have in your mind that you want to be. Like if you hit 500,000 or 1 million, is that when you're going to finally feel that profit in time, in profit and energy, a profit and fulfillment? I don't want to wait till that moment. How can I feel that today? So
Yeah.
important.
Yeah. That reminds me that one of the last masterminds that I was in my mastermind addiction. It was a great mastermind. I feel like I was way out of my league, but uh in that mastermind, the founder of this group was there, and everyone's just like so grateful to ask him questions. And the questions in that room, this is a room of like mostly seven-figure earners and some eight-figure earners. The questions were not like, how do I get leads? It was like, it was really like, how do I enjoy my life again? Or like,
Hmm.
I got to this number, and like someone's question was like, I got to this number and now I feel empty. It was a really emotional mastermind. I just remember that was really eye-opening to me too, because I was in kind of at the tail end of this cycle of like I wasn't sure how much longer I could do what I was doing. And it reminded me like, oh, that's what they're all coming here. They all got on this path because they thought it would lead them where they wanted to go, and they're not there, and now they don't know what to do.
Wow. Wow. So it's so fascinating to me when we pull back the curtain and to see that so many are feeling the same way. And just be making more money doesn't solve all those problems. It doesn't make them go away. In fact, it makes them more evident and more in your face. And also it makes it forces you to address them. So why not address them now as you're scaling to the 6, 7 figure business? And come to this workshop. There's a link below that you can sign up in the show notes and come join us, because this is going to be how you can flip the script to I can't hold on to money. I can't make more money. I feel stuck in this cycle and this loop, and I feel frustrated and I can't get my mindset right, or whatever it might be, to breaking free from that.
Yeah, can't wait
So
to see you.
excited. Yeah, I can't wait. I'm like, yeah, I'm nerding out. And then after that, also, just a sneak peek, Allison is going to be coming into our program, community coaching program, and she's going to be doing a whole series and working with us individually on taking action, because that's a part of it. Like you can learn all these things, all these concepts, but if you don't implement them and you don't actively work on them, they don't work. And Allison will be, I'm sure you can attest to this, as like, you can theorize this, you can read all the books, you can listen to podcasts like this, you can come to the workshop. But if you don't implement the activities and the shifts and keep working it until it's like breathing for you, it's not going to change anything.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm super excited. Super excited about the workshop, about being in your program and getting people even longer results. I'm very proud of the fact that I have terrible retention with my coaching clients because on the nervous system side, they get what they need and they move on.
I love it. I love
Yeah.
it. That's awesome. Well, I'm very much excited for the workshop. Go make sure you go sign up. And thank you, Allison, for joining us today. And I'm excited for the workshop that's coming up next. And we'll see you guys next week on another episode. Talk to y'all soon. Thanks for actually joining us today. I hope it inspired you to actually take the action to step into the empowered CEO that you are and getting more of the results that you want. Before you go, I have a quick favor. Leave us a review and take a screenshot of this episode and share it with your friends and on your favorite social media channels. Don't forget to tag us, the podcast, and Lonnie J. Jackson. And we'll see you next week on another episode.